When I first decided to give AI $1,000 of my own money to trade, I'll be honest, I hesitated. Not because I didn't believe in the technology. I've seen the charts, read the articles, heard the success stories. But believing in something conceptually and trusting it with your actual cash, that's a different game altogether. I'm not talking about demo trading or simulations. I'm talking about the kind of commitment that makes you sweat a little as you click. Confirm. This was my real money, earned from real hours, now being handed over to a machine that had never felt risk, fear, or loss. I'd always been curious about automated trading. The idea of algorithms scanning market data, making split-second decisions, without emotion, seemed almost too good to be true. And maybe that's why I had to find out for myself. No YouTube video, no review, no affiliate link was going to give me the answer I needed. I wanted to experience what it felt like to fully let go and let an AI do something that, for years, we were told only experienced traders could do. So I signed up on a platform that integrates AI into a trading bot. No coding needed, just a few strategic choices. I linked it to a basic strategy I'd heard some chatter about online, momentum-based with built-in stop losses and risk controls. Sounds smart, right? Maybe even safe. But no matter how carefully I configured it, I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty as I loaded the funds. My thumb hovered over the button for a good 30 seconds. When I finally pressed it, I stared at the screen for longer than I want to admit, waiting for something. Anything. A ping. A flash. A sign that the $1,000 had entered a new world where numbers moved faster than thought. And then, silence. No big moment. No cinematic suspense. Just a line of code quietly accepting my deposit and beginning its work. The first hour felt slow. I kept refreshing, every 5 minutes, watching, hoping. I knew logically that these bots don't operate like a human trader. No emotions, no dramatic market plays. But emotionally, I still expected something immediate. A huge win, a huge loss, anything that would make the decision feel justified. Instead, the bot made its first trade. Tiny, almost invisible. A short position on a currency pair I'd never even considered. I blinked. Was that it? Then it exited within minutes, pocketing a couple of dollars. That was my introduction to AI trading. It was quiet, unapologetic, and just getting started. Over the next few hours, it continued, placing trade after trade with zero hesitation. Small wins, smaller losses. It wasn't trying to impress me. It was simply executing, following logic I didn't entirely understand, but could sense was deliberate. But despite that, something in me started to feel wrong. I began to doubt, not the technology, but my decision. Was this just a slow bleed? 100 trades a day, chipping away at my balance until it was all gone? The numbers flickered like a heartbeat on the screen. Up a little, down a little more. I was hooked and terrified. By the end of the first 24 hours, the account was down. Not by much, maybe 3 to 4%, but enough to trigger my insecurities. I told myself it was normal, that every strategy takes time. But deep down, I was already preparing for the worst. My mind went into overdrive. Should I pull out now and salvage the rest? Should I tweak the strategy settings? Should I trust my gut? But then I remembered. This wasn't about winning or losing $1,000. This was about understanding. How it feels to let go of control. To trust something smarter, colder, and faster than I'll ever be. So I didn't touch it. I didn't adjust anything. I let the bot continue. That decision led to the most surprising part of the entire journey. Somewhere during the second day, the trade started to shift. Same logic, same strategy, but the results were different. The bot seemed to learn from earlier moves, avoiding the same losing patterns. It started riding trends more confidently. I watched it open a position and hold, not for minutes, but for hours. It exited with a profit that covered the previous day's losses in one move. Then it did it again. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable unless you were paying close attention. But I was. I saw the trades starting to compound. I saw the balance creeping. Back up, slowly, steadily. The fear I'd felt was still there, but now it was joined by something else. Respect. Not for the money, not for the success, for the process, for the consistency, for the unemotional, unwavering logic of a machine that didn't care how I felt. I wasn't cheering. I wasn't dancing. I was just quiet, watching, learning, understanding that this wasn't magic. It wasn't a hack or a shortcut. It was structure, patience, data. By the end of day 2, the account was back in green. A small profit, maybe a few percent, but enough to silence the doubt. Enough to show me that while AI may not always win fast, it plays the long game better than most of us ever could. And that's when I realized, this story was never about the $1,000. You said, by the time the bot had pulled my account back into the green, I noticed something different. Not in the numbers, but in me. I wasn't watching with the same tension anymore. I wasn't refreshing the screen every 10 seconds, praying for a spike. Instead, I started to observe with curiosity, not fear. I started to trust, not blindly, but cautiously. I still didn't understand every trade it made, but I began recognizing patterns. It wasn't guessing. It wasn't reacting emotionally. It was following logic that had no concern for how I felt about the results. That disconnection, the lack of emotional interference, was unnerving at first, but it was also strangely calming. Then came the turning point. Around day 3, the AI executed a trade that didn't make sense to me at all. It went long on an asset I assumed was about to drop. I stared at the screen, shaking my head. It was like watching a friend walk into a storm without an umbrella. I was tempted to intervene. My human instinct told me to override it. Stop the loss before it happened. But I didn't. I reminded myself that I wasn't the one making the decisions anymore. I was the observer. This was the test. And I had to let the process play out. That single trade turned into the most profitable position of the entire week. While the market dipped briefly, just enough to shake out the impatient, AI held on, stayed in, and then rode the rebound. It was as if it anticipated the fear-driven dip and calmly waited for the recovery. That's when I saw it clearly. This machine wasn't trying to outsmart the market by being faster or more aggressive. It was simply unemotional. It wasn't scared to hold through noise. It didn't care what Twitter said or what the charts looked like in the moment. It followed the data, nothing more. From that point on, the bot seemed almost elegant in its movements. No more erratic scalps or second-guessing entries. It traded fewer times, but with more impact. Gains started to accumulate, not explosively, but consistently. I wasn't getting rich overnight, but the curve was upward, slow, stable, believable. It was the kind of growth that didn't feel like hype. It felt like progress. That week taught me something most traders don't want to hear. The market doesn't reward intensity. It rewards discipline. AI doesn't get tired, emotional, or overconfident. It just follows the system. And if you let it do that, without human interference, it works more often than it doesn't. The results aren't always dramatic, but they're rooted in reason. Not hope, not fear, not greed. But here's the twist. By the end of the week, when I tallied up everything, I wasn't focused on the number. Sure, the account had grown. $1,000 turned into $1,142. Nothing that would change my life. But what changed was how I thought about trading, and how I saw my own role in it. I realized I'd spent years thinking success in the markets was about who could predict better, who had the edge, who had the sixth sense. But the AI didn't predict. It reacted with structure. And more importantly, it didn't care about being right. It just cared about following the rules. That's where it hit me hardest. Because how many times had I broken my own rules? How many times had I chased a pump, held through a dump, or exited too early just because my heart couldn't handle the volatility? Too many. The AI didn't do that. It was disciplined in ways I'd never been. It held me accountable. Not because it judged me, but because it showed me what consistency really looks like. So, would I do it again? Yes. But not because I made $140. That's not the point. I do it again because it showed me something I hadn't expected to see. How dangerous I am to my own success. That's not easy to admit. But it's the truth. The worst trades I've ever made weren't because the market betrayed me. They were because I betrayed my own logic. AI doesn't do that, and maybe that's why it wins in the long run. Not because it's smarter, but because it's more. Honest, what I learned has nothing to do with coding or platforms or which asset to trade. It has everything to do with how we handle control, fear, and discipline. We think trading is about knowledge, but it's actually about behavior. And when you let something without ego manage your money, you see just how much ego you've been trading with all along. In the end, the biggest gain wasn't financial. It was the realization that success doesn't come from predicting the market. It comes from not sabotaging yourself when it moves. And that's what AI taught me. Oh,